Good evening. Welcome to our OMI Chat Live. This evening we're going to have a very interesting conversation. So this is Mission Month, also known as Missionary October or World Mission Month. It's an annual celebration in the Catholic Church. Its aim is to promote missionary work, provide support, and raise awareness for missions worldwide. Throughout this month, Catholic communities, organizations, and institutions come together for various activities and initiatives. These endeavors highlight the importance of spreading the gospel, offering humanitarian aid, and supporting communities that are in need, especially in regions with limited resources and religious access. During this month, all Catholics are encouraged to pray for missionaries, mission locations, and those in need of spiritual and material assistance. It's an opportunity to learn about the challenges faced by our missionaries and their communities, as well as the significance of solidarity and evangelization in all areas of life. Parishes often invite missionaries to share their experiences and stories with their congregations, inspiring others to join in this missionary work. This is a time for us Catholics to reflect on the crucial role of missionary work as part of the Church's commitment to spreading the message of Christ and providing humanitarian aid to those in need. And of course, all of this strongly resonates with us as we are Oblates of Mary Immaculate. Now let's welcome you to OMI Chat Live, where we'll be discussing missions and much more. This evening we have some amazing guests joining us. Father David, please introduce yourself briefly, even though many of our followers know you.
I am Father David Munoz Lopez. I'm currently the director of the Macedonian family here in the United States. I'm usually here working with them, those lay people that are sharing our charism, that are with us in our charism. And I have another little side job. I'm also the assistant of the Cathedra of Oblate Studies here in Oblate School of Theology in San Antonio. So I'm the assistant of Father Frank Santucci, that maybe a lot of you already know him. So I'm involved also in the academic part of it, not just here in the United States, but throughout the whole congregation, and continuing formation for oblates. So that's what I do.
Thank you. Now I invite Father Antonio to introduce himself as well. Please go ahead.
I'm not that famous like Father David, but I'm Father Anthony Massetti. I am originally from Florence in Italy, but from 20 years I've been a missionary here in Uruguay. Living different kinds of realities, working with the young people, being with the popular missions, parish missions, and also working in education. All of my oblate experience after ordination, I have lived it here in Uruguay. I'm 53 years old, and most of it I've been living here in Uruguay, being here in the mission in Uruguay. Uruguay, I also have the great fortune to be teaching missiology here in the School of Theology. For the last 10 years I've been doing this. So this is what I've been doing here as a missionary. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you this evening.
And perhaps the most well-known of all, as we see him in many photos and videos of the congregation, Father Jorge, our General Counselor for Latin America. Welcome, Father. Please introduce yourself.
Hello. Happy evening. Good evening for those of you who are here in Rome. I'm Father Jorge Albergati. As Kike said, I'm here as the General Counselor for Latin America. Most of my missionary life, I've been in Uruguay, also in Venezuela, and in the last recent years, I was the provincial of Cruz del Sur, the province of Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay. In the last chapter, I was elected as Counselor General for Latin America, and now actually just a year, just reached a year. And here I am, accompany our brothers in from Latin America.
Very good, Father Jorge. Welcome. Before we dive into discussing Missionary October, Father Jorge, I know you've recently concluded a plenary session. Could you remind us what a plenary session is, how often it takes place, and how long these sessions last?
Yeah. So actually, we finish it tomorrow. Tomorrow will be our last day. The plenary session is a session, as the word says. It brings the central government together. So the whole administration is united. We gather and we participate. The Superior General is there, the Vicar General is there, the 2 Assistant Generals are there, the 5 counselors are there, 1 for each of the regions, and the Secretary General and the General Treasurer. So during these gatherings, we have it 3 times a year, and we should all be there present. And what we talk about in these gatherings or these meetings are the recommendations and the proceedings of the general chapter. So we kind of look back and see what did the chapter ask of us and are we doing it? So we're back checking or balancing checks, as you might say. So then we also have to name the new provincials and their councils. So that's what we do also during these meetings. If I speak too fast, let me know. So we also talk about the different regions, the different provinces. We also look at the budget, the help that's being asked, the different funds that are being taken out. So we have a lot of things that we do during these meetings. So usually it lasts for 4 to 5 weeks that we are gathered together, and we try to update each other on how we're doing, what's going on in our lives, of our different visits, our travel plans, etc. And we also do a little bit of permanent formation, and we also have our retreat.
It sounds like a lot of work, yeah.
The interesting thing is it's 4 or 5 weeks, and we do a lot. There's a lot of work going on.
So, given that you're here with us, I'm interested to know, I believe many of our followers too, what's the spirit like among you during these sessions? How do you build a community? What are the challenges? What are the most beautiful moments?
I think God calls us and the chapter unites us. So that's the spirit we have. So we're 11 here in the central government. We're from 11 different nationalities. So we struggle with having a common language, actually. It looks like a Tower of Babel. We speak in all the different languages in the same sentence, but we understand each other. One of the things that the beautiful things that I've lived in this experience is to really touch what it means to be interculturally. You know, to discover what the other likes, what the other eats. I'm constantly learning about the other. So it's an experience of community, of being together, We have time to share our personal lives with each other, like just like every community. The central government needs to be, maybe we should say, the example, and then try to live with all that means, our community.
Okay. Well, given that you're here with us, could you share with us some of the fruits from this last session?
Sure, I would love to. I think that some of the fruits that that you've already seen is, you can see it already in All My World. We have our first brother as Secretary General from the Philippines, was just elected. He was just nominated this afternoon. We also have the General Treasurer, which is Father Charles from South Africa. They've already begun putting themselves inside the community. Brother, for example, he's a doctor. He's worked many years in the Philippines. And Father Charles, he was part of the OIP, and he's always been in finances in the congregation. Also, during this plenary session, we have already named provincials from, like, for example, Canada, Notre Dame, and also we've also named the provincial of the province of the United States, Ray Cook, and also the provincial of the Philippines, which was renewed, and each one with their own council. Jerry from the Philippines was named provincial again. So we're also working on the document from the mandates of the general chapter. The last chapter, I think, one of the words that really came out, that was most noticeable, at least for me, was community, to take care of our life, to look at our to really look at our common life together. And also consider those that live our charism, the lay people, the congregation. Look at the formation of the congregation, and to look after our common home, Laudato Si. I think we're constantly being reminded about the spirit of the last chapter, and how do we implement that today?
Father Jorge, thank you very much. We are praying for you. Thanks for the service which you're doing. Thank you from the bottom of the heart. Father David, are you awake? Are you still there? So now we're going to go ahead with another theme in our chapter. So of course we're all missionary oblates of Mary Immaculate. What does October mean to us? Does it hold any particular significance?
To go out to others. Originally, St. Eugene didn't found. We weren't founded to go preach missions in that sense. He thought that maybe in the future he'll be able to send out missionaries in the future. Obviously, the small group that he had gathered together, they were not enough to be sending out to different countries, but he had thought originally to concentrate in Aix-en-Provence. But we have this spirit, this missionary spirit, which is two-sided, that we really have to celebrate this spirit. These missions that we have, to be able to go out to the different places of the world, that we're able to go out to the different parts of the world and take the gospel message, to be able to go to all the farthest parts of the globe. But also to remember, the other side of this cone, is that when we were founded, the mission was local. And we have to be conscious about this, not just about the missions outside, but that any place that we find ourselves, there we are a missionary foremost. So we could be someplace very close to our home, and there we are missionaries. So we are missionaries that has a lot of faces. Our missionary face is multi-faced. And that's what I think we need to celebrate in this month of October. There's two types of being missionaries. Missionary oblates, we are offerings. So we dedicate ourselves to look for those opportunities at the local level or at extra or outside of us.
It comes to my mind, for example, thinking about local communities and parishes and families and schools. Those are missionary environments. Not only going to other countries and continents, but the mission is even here where we are, right? So in our Constitution number 5, it reminds us that the entire congregation is missionary. Its primary service in the church is to proclaim Christ and his kingdom to the most abandoned. Father Antonio, from the founder's perspective, who are the most abandoned? Are they the same today as at the time of the congregation's founding?
Well, from the founder's perspective, the most abandoned were those that they were marginalized. They were outside of the city, and because of the French Revolution, they were losing everything, all of their faith. Those who were in the fields, those who were the servants, those who didn't have a voice, and also the poor people, the prisoners who arrived to X. These are all the people that for him were the most abandoned. Also the reality of the young people. Eugene saw that they were being abandoned. They're being forgotten. They were constantly they were going against other ideals. So his intention was precisely this, to be able to be close to these people. So the most abandoned that Eugene were those that were going to benefit from God's love. That today, the reality is a lot more, I think. Those that are, that they feel abandoned, that feel this abandonment. I would begin by saying, look at the reality that is being lived right now in a worldwide level. I mean, look at the immigrants. He talked about prisoners. Here we're talking about immigrants. We have to be close to them. Those who are not protected. Those who are most abandoned are those that have lost contact with the church, for example. We see that in countries that are secularized. One of the realities that perhaps is very different from the time of Eugene are the old. They are abandoned also. The elderly. The families, for example, they're smaller units in a family. So of course it's a lot more difficult for them to take care, to look after their elderly, the grandparents, grandmothers, whatever. Even Pope Francis says we have to look at those who are at the extremes, that they are the most abandoned. I would also say that abandoned are those who are indifferent to the faith. I would say I would call the those who think of themselves more than the others, those who are oppressing those. We have to help them enter into an awareness that it's worthwhile loving the others rather than oppressing them. So we have the same people that Eugene talks about, but we have to add a lot more to that list. And God is calling us to be closer to these people, to all of these people. That's the reality of today, I think. Then we can include those that have no voice, the indigenous people, First Nations. These are realities that are inside of the church, but also outside of the church, that need to be listened to, that need to be accompanied.
Yeah, that which Father David mentioned, the poor have many faces. And we also need to learn the signs of the times, because there are many types of poverty, not only economically, there are many other types. And so we're also called to go to those places. So we have a long history. We were called the Missionaries of Provence, and then the Missionaries of St. Charles. And finally we got the name of Missionary Oblates of Mary Immaculate. Father David, please take us on a historical and charismatic journey of who we are and what we do as missionaries. How did St. Eugene at the beginning begin in his region, and how did it expand to other regions, to Canada, other countries?
It would be very difficult for me to say briefly. The turning point for us was in 1816 when we were founded. The Pope returned to Rome. So we thought at the beginning, what they thought was that the only way to re-evangelize in France was during the popular missions, the parish missions. So then the Pope saw in us an opportunity. And even Eugene began to evangelize. In fact, Eugene had a friend who, I don't remember his name. I think it was missionaries of Paris, missionaries of France. They wanted to send missionaries all the way to China. And Eugene writes a letter to him and says, I don't want to join you in this, in your missionary zeal to go to China, to go to all these other places, when here around me I have people who are abandoned, who do not know the love of Christ and are far away from God. So then that's how he founded the Missionaries of Provence. In 1818, we were given a shrine outside of Provence. So now our name needs to change. It can no longer be called Missionaries of Provence because we're no longer just in Provence. So also the missionary, so now the missionaries are no longer going to the communities as it was in our origins. Now, what ends up happening, things begin to change. When we get the shrine, people start coming to us. We weren't going no longer out to preach the parish missions. Now people are coming to the sanctuary, to the shrine. So our sense of missionary begins to change, to evolve according to the needs. And I think this is at the core of the Oblate Spirit. Wherever it is that we are, that's what ends up happening. We let evolution take hold of us, to take hold of mission. In fact, Constitution number 8 reminds us that we look at the needs and we try to respond in whichever way possible, that message of Jesus Christ gets there. To be creative, to look at who we have in front of us and be creative to respond to that need. So when the founder goes to Rome in 1827 to ask for a papal approval, in the founder's mind, he did not have in mind to think about calling us missionaries of Mary Magdalene, none of that. He had the idea of calling us missionaries of St. Charles. Now remember, this was the time during the Immaculate Conception. And he also had an experience before the image of Mary. That he saw that the bishops were taking away his guise. There's a crisis in the congregation. But Mary had something for us. She had a mission for us. And that gave him zeal, that gave him hope. So when he gets to Rome and he sees all these celebrations of Mary Immaculate, the love that the people have for Mary Immaculate, so then when he gives the rule to the Pope, he asks the Pope to change the name to us, to be missionaries of Mary Immaculate. He already had in mind this idea of being called missionary, oblates. So he wanted to add now Immaculate, Mary Immaculate. The Pope doesn't give initially a response, but he thinks about it. And then many months later, when the rules are approved, the name is changed. And he writes some letters to Tempier, such beautiful letters, saying, "Foolish me, why didn't I think about this before? We are missionary oblates of Mary Immaculate." And now we look at it and see, how is Mary the model? She's the model of mission. She is the perfect missionary. She shows us how to reach those that are most abandoned. Look at the Gospel of Luke. She accompanies her son always. Just read Scripture. Mary is the perfect missionary. This is what Mary does to us. We don't just imitate her. We imitate her as an oblate missionary.
Thank you very much, Father, for your titanic work. Thank you very much. I have another question for our missionary from Cruz del Sur, Father Antonio. From your perspective, what is the significance of being a missionary oblate, and does it still hold importance in a context like ours?
The sense of being missionary, yes. Not just for oblates, but as Christians. We are all called to be missionaries. All of us are missionaries. We are part of the church, and the church exists because it's missionary. That's the principal reality, to go encounter the other. So what does it mean to be missionary? I think Father David already said it very beautifully, is to imitate Mary, to have her attitude. Well, what are her attitudes? What is the imitation we want to do? Well, the first thing is we have to accept. We accept the project. The missionary is sent to take on a mission, who gives himself, who offers himself, who makes himself available for a mission. Like us, as oblates, as a congregation, religious congregation, we're available. We offer our time. Also the laity, how can the laity live it? They make themselves available. They're able to live in their own reality. See, at the very core of being a missionary, you have to be available to whatever God asks of us. To be a missionary, I think, is really to feel to have this capacity to go out of oneself, especially out of our comfort zone, we might say. The missionary is the one who throws himself. When he sees something a necessity. Before even saying yes, the body reacts. I think this is what it means to be a missionary. To be able to put ourselves in second place and just let ourselves be at the service at the other. And this is who Mary was. This is why we can learn a lot from the image of Mary. Even before understanding God's project, she says yes. She puts herself at the service. And we as missionaries do the same. We are called to take this mission forward that has been given to us, to carry it forward. This is what I think it feels like being a missionary. There's a call that we're living that we cannot just hold it for ourselves, that it's looking a way to escape, to get out. This is the dynamics that I see about being a missionary, that you've had this experience of God and you just want to share it with everybody. You cannot hold it in. You can be individualistic.
All right. Now, in the church, we're known as specialists in difficult missions, not specialists in making missions difficult, as some might think. Father David, what is the story behind this beautiful title? Where did it come from, and what challenges does it have for us today?
That comes from Pius XI, who recognized that we were going to these difficult places. We have a dictionary available to us that's online. You can get it at the OMIWORLD. And we can read about all the things that our missionaries have done in our 200-year history. It's incredible just to read all those stories. To see how we reached to some of these places. They were difficult people. They were the places nobody wanted to go to. They were maybe too far. There was no civilization. It was out in the boonies. You didn't have what you needed to live sometimes. And these guys, they went. They were creative. And I think that's where it came from. We're not afraid. We just throw ourselves into it. That's in our constitutions and rules. Just read our preface. We try everything. We try everything. We've done it these 200 years that we've existed. Even if we don't completely reach it, we try. We keep trying.
Father Jorge, are you listening to me? All right. I'd like to give you the question that was for Father David.
From the
perspective of the General Council,
what are the difficult missions? I think we're having problems with the sound. We're in a world, and we're living in a world that pushes us to individualism. And living in community is doesn't let us be missionaries. We're living in this time that's difficult to be a missionary. We want to be in different places, and we forget about living in community. So that's why I think at Intra, it's one of our most difficult missions to be able to live as missionaries. On the other hand, we have these difficult missions that are difficult to reach, physically reach. Also secularized places. The cities, just look at the cities. We have all these high buildings, these tall buildings, and it's difficult. It's sometimes a lot easier to reach those that are in the fields, that are in the outside, than in the cities, in the urban areas. There's a lot of things that are making it difficult. But this is causing us to reflect, to look at us and see what does it mean to be a missionary for us. There's a lot of hope. What helps us is that everything that we do it looking at the poor, thinking about the poor. What Father Teach always talks about. Whenever he takes a decision, is it good for the poor? And I think that helps us to look and see what is our mission.
Thank you very much, Father Jorge. Father David, I have a question for you. We know you're responsible for the Macedonian family. Who are they and what role do they play? What is their vocation in the congregation's mission? And if anybody watching right now were interested, how can they get involved in this missionary work?
There's a little small clarification I need to make. I am director of the Macedonian family in the U.S. This maybe Father Jorge can talk about it better. That we do have a layperson actually who's a director of the Macedonian family on worldwide for the whole congregation to animate the lay people to help them participate in this Macedonian family. Stefano Dominici, an Italian. I work very closely with him along with other people that form part of this committee. But really, there are those that who live, participate in the spirit, in the charism of St. Eugene the Mazenod. That's why it depends where you are in the world. We look in some places called lay oblate family, Macedonian family. We're really trying to look at is, or we're trying to focus us on the fact that we are participating in the Mazenod spirituality, the Mazenod charism. So these lay people that are interested, maybe they've worked with us in a mission, they have seen how we live our spirituality, authentically living it. They see how we are missionary as authentic missionaries. And they're attracted to this charism of Eugene, of Mazenod. So we've reached a point that where these people, where they saw us doing this and that, and they became our benefactors. They gave us those means, the resources that allowed us to work with the poor, allowed us to be missionaries. They also accompanied us with their prayers. But we've reached a point, and since 2015, Pope Francis has called us that these are not just benefactors. They live the charism of St. Eugene in their vocation as lay people. These are people who feel at the core of their spirit to participate, to live this missionary charism. We also be careful also in our vocabulary that they're not just helping us. We live our mission as consecrated priests, as professed oblates, professed brothers. They live it in a different reality, in a family, as single people, consecrated virgins. By our baptism, we are all missionaries. They're living that charism, that missionary, according to their status of life. But we are collaborating. We're living it together. We are pilgrims in hope and communion. We're all walking in the same missionary road, guided by Eugene the Masonaut, inspired by his charism, and that is a beauty. We do it differently. I think sometimes maybe I'm criticizing. I hope nobody gets, some Mobblies might think they're taking away something that is ours. No, they're enriching us.
Yeah, I believe that this perspective shows the protagonism of the laypersons also to also live the mission. Very good. In a world that's changing so much, everything is constantly evolving, as a famous song says. So, Father Antonian, how can the congregation maintain its identity and effectively communicate its message and values to such a diverse and multicultural audience? And how should the congregation balance its traditional missionary work with contemporary concerns like environmental management and sustainable development?
Well, the first thing I want to say is for in order for us to live our mission, to respond to the multiculturality, we have to be multicultural ourselves. That is a reality we're already living now. As a congregation, we are present in 70 countries. But multicultural also means to live something, a reality we have to live daily. And we've already, from many years past, we've already been living international communities. I think most Oblate communities now are living this reality where you have Oblates from different countries, nationalities, coming together and living under the same roof. That's already a first step. And a first step in evangelization. From our perspective, we can help others understand what multiculturality, there's no different by our own witness. That the different cultures enrich. It shouldn't cause wars amongst us, which sometimes we see, but it is an opportunity. This is also responding to these of the times. All these are very important questions. The reality of the mission, as Father David has talked about, the reality of mission is always changing, is always evolving. These are things that are being presented, that present themselves. They're different now that we've lived in the past. And then what's going to come in the future, it could be new things. But the capacity of the Oblate is precisely to do that, to be able to respond to those needs, to those new realities. So through our living, we can also say that we can help the others love what is different. I see that sometimes how we as community I see how sometimes we can make our little islands inside of our society. But we're called to live in a society. I think that's fundamental. I think it's important to reach that place where we love the different, or that different thing that my brother brings to me. That's the beauty of the mission. This is the reality of living in a multicultural world. And we can't escape from it. This is reality. So, how do I relate to the other? What does this mean? This means being open to the other. This is a great challenge, I think. It helps us get out of our comfort zone, to stop thinking, well, what's best should be like this. This thing should be done this way. No, it's not done that way. No, because the other thinks differently. The other has a different vision, and so we have to be in dialogue. So the Oblate communities that are multicultural can be a witness to this reality, this love amongst them. What is different is not a challenge. It helps us grow. It helps us create. It's not the fact to put everybody under the same model or the same.
Father Jorge, I haven't forgotten about you. So for this World Mission Day, the Pope has chosen a theme inspired by the story of the disciples of Emmaus in the Gospel of Luke. Burning hearts, feet in movement. Could you please share with us a summary of what the Pope has said in his message?
I think the story of Emmaus, we all know it. I think it's something, probably one of the most well known in the Bible. And every time we read it, we identify ourselves with one of those persons in the Bible. One of the things that really calls attention to me in the Pope's message is, you have these disciples that are leaving, they're going to this town of Emmaus. Sometimes we look at the world and we say, we're in total ruins. We look at the war in Ukraine. So we feel like we have no hope. There's no reason. There's a lot of things that are going wrong. We thought that the 21st century, things were going to change, and we see the world being destroyed. And we're the protagonists of that destruction. We look at the families, our families, they're also suffering. And the Pope says, maybe you feel hopeless. And you have these guys, they're walking to Emmaus, and the Pope and Jesus appears to them, and he hears them. And that they, through the Word of God, they start to get a sense. And they feel that their hearts are inflamed, are burning. It's like when when you feel like you own something, or that something touches you, we have this expression that it moves our hearts, that it makes our hearts burn. And in this journey of these disciples to Emmaus, and then the Pope talks about, let us not let others steal our hope. We have to speak about hope. Our chapter talked about we are pilgrims of hope in communion. Pope also talks about when they get to this little place where they were walking to, that they sit together at the table. Like a father, he takes the bread, he blesses it, then he gives it out. He broke it. And that's when they recognize them. Not just with their hearts burning, but also their eyes were opened. They're able to see. And at this moment, they don't see him anymore. He's he changed. Now he's present inside of them. And that's when he starts talking about being a movement. It's all the experience that one has with conversion. We have to rethink about our values, our way of acting. So these guys from these disciples of Emmaus, we see how Jesus changed them. And the first thing that they change is that they have to go back. They have to return to Jerusalem. They have to communicate what they had just lived. So the person who has this experience of God, that what he feels inside of himself, they have to share it because it changed their life. It was such impactful. They have to change it. Just like Eugene, his experience in front of the cross, he says, okay, that's fine. You know, I have to change this. I have to have others experience this reality. And this is what we do as missionaries. This experience that we live is not for us. We have to share it. We cannot hush what we have lived. We cannot keep silent. It happened to Eugene. It happens to us. I think each one of us can share an experience. Being able to share to others so that the other can open his heart, so they can open their eyes, that they can walk. This, when we've been speaking about mission, this touches all of us, since we've already said it on this webinar. We have all, since our baptism, we've all been called, we've all been sent. Many of us have talked about Oblate family, Macedonian family, charismatic family. We have all these terms that we've been using because it includes a lot more people. But when Eugene was canonized, at that moment, he no longer belonged to us. He belongs to the whole church. And I think in this time, we're looking more at this and we're becoming more aware, more conscious of this. That the protagonists of the church of today are the lay people. Maybe in the past, it was us. But now we open our eyes and we see that it's them. But they're not by themselves. I mean, we're also with them. We're all working together. And I think this is the beauty of this missionary church. You know, it's not just what we're waiting to see what comes out of the synod that we're living in right now, but it's the reality that we are living now. We are already part of this Macedonian family, this charismatic family.
Thank you, Father Jorge. I think we could continue for hours, but now we're arriving to the end of this chat. So thanks to each one who participated for the words and all that you shared. So let's finish this time together, giving thanks to God. That we give thanks to God that we could remember the dynamic reality of the mission. And so we spoke about the poor, the different types of the poor, their various needs. And the reality is sometimes very complicated, and we need to be pilgrims of hope. And this hope comes in our encounter with God. So thank you very much to all of you. And we're praying for everyone, and we also ask for your prayers for us and for all missionaries, especially in this month of October.
Praise be Jesus Christ and
And
Mary
Mary
Immaculate. Till next time.